Thank you to members of the public, councillors and officers who are joining us for today's meeting. Please be aware that the council is videoing and this will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel in due course. Just to highlight a few key points of the meeting format, please make sure that everybody has their phones switched off or set to silent. Fire escapes are in the usual places, the doors out of the chambers and down the external fire escape or the main entrance. In the event of a fire, don't use the lift. Assembly point is outside the Royal Mail office on West Street. And please remain seated unless you are asked to speak or take a comfort break. And we all know where the toilets are. I shall omit the issues about the members of the public as we don't have any public participants. I'd ask participants looking to leave the meeting wait until the end of an agenda item. We don't have members of the public. We don't have a confidential session. Please remember to show respect to everyone in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible in order to let others be able to follow the meeting. If ever any councillor feels concerned about any aspects of the meeting or discussion, please state to me point of order and then I will gesture them to ask them to elaborate. If anyone else present is felt to be behaving unacceptably, they will be ejected from the meeting by resolution. And thank you all for listening. On behalf of the council, I wish to thank everyone for attending this town council meeting. Right, so first of all, apologies for absence.
We've got Councillor Dubass for personal commitments.
Right, and that's
all?
That's no one else has let us know they're not coming. Okay,
Councillor James Meeks has told me he is coming.
Right.
I just interrupted him in the middle of his dinner earlier, so he's on his way.
Oh, right. So is there something going on downstairs?
You just get into the...
is that him?
Yeah, the access.
Yeah.
Entrance. Right. So Councillor Meek is expected, but he hasn't arrived.
He's just in the building.
We will wait and await his arrival.
In the building.
We'll see if he's got a note from his mum to explain his latest.
He better had.
There's trouble.
So you have to stand in the corner. That's what they did at school, wasn't it? Did my school at all. Have you got a note from your mum?
Jeff wants to know if you've got a note.
Welcome, Councillor. We have just started, but we've been through the preliminaries. We don't have any members of the public, so you're very welcome. Okay. So we've had apologies of absence from Councillor Dubois.
Yeah.
Disclosure of interest to deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2001 in relation to matters on the agenda. Do we have any disclosures of interest? No. Item 3, public participation, but we don't have any public present. So we will move on to the first item, which is projects and facilities update report from our assets and projects manager.
So we've got 3 items on here: the bins for green seeds, Christmas magic, and D-Day. The important one to note is the Christmas magic with the date that we've asked you to consider accepting, and there's a new route. I also want to mention 2 typos in the report. So it's page 6 where we put the wrong date for the grant application, which should say 2024, and on page 8 where licence has been spelled incorrect. It should have a C. Thank you, Maggie, for those 2. And then obviously D-Day, where we put the details. Christmas magic, just as a summary, we're going to keep the same, but we are going to, with the grotto, see if we can get someone else to host that rather than us this time, because it was so successful, Christmas magic last year.
Yes, okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, everyone. I don't like the idea of hosting Christmas Magic, the actual event in November, because for me Christmas starts when you're more in December. Now, I had an idea that whenever before the first Saturday in December, the lights go on the 1st December anyway. And in fact, I don't really know the clarification on the end date. You know, is it end of December or does it go into the 6th of January? That's another issue. But otherwise, you could argue you may have to end up doing the 25th of November, depending on when the Saturdays are, if you're trying to do the same routine and for the future years. So I don't really think that, I'm not really happy with it going into November for the actual day, because for me, Christmas should really start in December instead of looking at other events around. I know some of the bigger cities will put lights on in sort of mid-November and so on, but I don't think Seaford's a bigger city in that respect. So I don't know what other councillors think on the trend, and I'd like to have a bit of clarification when you expect the lights to be going off is it New Year's Day or is it in the 6th of January or whatever. So I'm not sure what the regime is for the Christmas Magic and when the lights are meant to be on. So thank you.
So the Sharon, would you like to?
Yeah, I can do. So the lights going off, we have a contractor that we are given an option of some dates, and it's not always the 1st of January for those to be turned off. It's normally a little bit later that we can get those lights turned off, or we can look at scheduling of when we would like the lights to be turned off. So it's dependent on us of when we want to do that. With regards to the date of it being the end of November to host Christmas Magic, the date was suggested by officers following a meeting that we had with traders. They felt that if we hosted the event on the first Saturday in December, as we normally do, that is taking another weekend away from them as traders, with the lights being on with the Christmas, for people tying in with their pay date. So a lot of people are paid towards the end of the month, and that the town won't feel very Christmassy, to attract people to come into town. So they were looking at trying to maximise the Christmas period and for the lights to be on for the whole of December.
So I felt the same as Councillor Hanneman, as it's always traditionally the first Saturday in December. But when you look at the date, it's only one day. The next day is 1st of December. So I think on this occasion, I propose that we go for the 30th of November.
Okay. Councillor Bristol.
Thank you for this. I also initially felt, oh gosh, November, but it is that last day, as Councillor Warren has said and as Sharon has explained. I think, with the way that the dates fall, there would be a whole week where we weren't in Christmas mode at the beginning of December. On this occasion, what I really wanted to say was about the route coming through Seaford. I welcome the fact that it's actually extended a bit, it's sort of got an extra block, doesn't it? I think that's really good and worthwhile, especially for the children who are making the lanterns. It's got, they'd like to probably show it off a bit more, and then it was quite well attended last year. What I wonder, and I love bonfire and I love the bonfire drumming and all that brings, but at the same time, I wonder if part of the route could be a quieter part of the route, or perhaps with some Christmas carols. I think we had some carols singing last year down at High Street, so maybe the drumming would go for part of the route, and then there would be part of the route that would be sort of quieter, because although a lot of people love the drumming, it's quite impactful, and for some people it made it a bit tricky. So I just wondered if that's something to consider, and again I just want to reiterate my support for bonfire and the people who make that happen, because it is fantastic. But I just wonder, with it being a longer route, if we can perhaps accommodate slightly two different modes, if you like.
Any other comments? Oh, sorry.
No, go first.
Councillor Honeyman and then Councillor Hyman.
I think Councillor Roll.
Sorry.
I think, having worked in retail for a very long time, Christmas kicks off in September.
Yeah.
And it's mental torture, September till about mid to late January. And I've had it for about nearly 30 years. So actually Saturday the 30th of November is actually quite late. It's actually quite late. So I totally understand why you've gone for Saturday the 30th of November, because it is a really important part for traders. They need it. I mean, really from mid-November, it's quiet, but it then starts kicking off and then it just peaks and then it just dies again afterwards. So I think the 30th of November is the good option, because otherwise it is a week too late. And you've got to grab every opportunity, especially in the current climate. So yes, having had mental torture for nearly 30 years at Christmas for a very long time.
Thank you. Councillor Rutland.
I was just saying, is there do we have any information on when other towns are doing something similar? Are they all doing the same sort of dates? Yeah, because unfortunately Christmas does seem to last about 3 months.
Exactly.
And you tend to get a bit sort of festive fatigue, or at least I do. And I'm centre at the local primary school, so I would be happy with the following week, but if everyone thinks the first is or the 30th is a good idea, then so be it. Anyone know when any other towns are having theirs?
I do.
Yes.
Lewis is going the Thursday before the 30th.
We're going
Before
to
the 30th.
Yeah, so they're always a Thursday. A Thursday evening for the late night shopping.
That's the 28th.
28th, yeah. And then New Haven, I think, is a little bit later. But apart from that, I'm not sure of any others at the moment.
But they're sooner and they're later, we're right in the middle, so that doesn't clash. So that's a good point. I like that. Let's not clash.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Honeyman for the second time.
Well, Councillor Bristow, I will come back in a minute. I did be the last person as I started the question, so go on, Councillor.
Just a quick point following on. Last year there was another event, another Christmas celebration in the town. Do you know if that's going to go ahead this year again in a similar way? A late night shopping, I think it was. Do you know if has there been any indication of if that's happening?
Yeah, the traders would like to do something again. They're just discussing and working with us on the route so that they can plan where their event is going to land and where they would like to host their stalls. And they would like to work with the council more so that it's more joined up this year, because I think they felt as though there was some confusion in the community of what was happening on what days, what that actually meant, yeah. So I think what they were quite liking to do was for us to host the lantern parade and the workshop and the grotto, or work with a partner for the grotto, and then they would like to deliver the offering of the stalls in town on the same day, and for us all to collaborate.
That's great tip. Thank you.
Sounds very coordinated.
And last but not least.
Well, I'll come back. Yes, interesting. Obviously, Lewis must have changed their rules. So there used to be first Thursday in this Lewis Town Council, first Thursday in December, wasn't it? So that's a bit of a recent change, isn't it? So I mean, I'm happy with the provider, but can we revisit the date for next year though, for the 25? If that's okay. I don't think you want to come back and review again for this time next year.
We'll come every year with
That side of things,
request
because
for approval for the date.
and also the closing date in January. I think most of us said we'd wish it to at least go to New Year's Day, up to New Year's Eve, wouldn't we, if we can? I can understand once you get into the New Year, it's slightly different, because you notice some towns don't turn the lights on not much after that. They're waiting for the lights to come down and everything. So I leave you to be flexible depending on how things are. But as long as it gets to New Year's Day, then I think we're all right. I don't know what other councils think of that, but that's probably the proviso you're thinking as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I'm sort of happy. But school's back up 22nd of December this year, so it's later than 23. So that's enough for interest if you're trying to tie it in, because a lot of it's aimed for the children, but they are a good week later compared to 23, which is the 15th of December in this area. So there we are. Thank you.
Right.
22nd this year.
So no comments about Green Seas or the D-Day celebrations? Right,
I just wanted to quickly thank the officers for putting the application in for the bin for Green Seas. I know it was quite a deadline to meet. You don't have any updates, they give any indication on when they're going to come back? You don't know if it's going to be this summer or... Okay, so we'll just have to roll with it. Thank you.
And I'd just like to thank you for bringing that to our attention, because it was quite a tight time scale, and it's one of my little projects, so I'm really pleased that we managed to get it in, and we just keep our fingers crossed that there's a positive outcome. So thank you for your contribution. Councillor Warraven.
I understand that there will be some wreath laying on D-Day. I presume it'll be at 11 o'clock. I've been waiting some comeback on it from the Legion. So I think, you know, if it's going ahead, I thought ordered a wreath. Like the mayor and the young mayor will be laying a wreath on that day.
That would be a great idea.
But I can confirm.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as I'm at the Legion tomorrow. So. And the other thing is, like with the celebrations of last year, are we going to have a bunting up again for D-Day?
We could.
I think it was quite well received with local people, and yes, we've got it.
Sorry, you were talking about the bunting that we had in Broad Street. Yeah, there was quite a cost to that, so we may have to come back to you.
We have money in the budget which we're not spending on this, so we do actually have capacity to, if that's what councillors would like.
I think for the celebration
It was well received last year.
Okay.
Yes, it's a special celebration.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any more comments with that? Okay. So, can I have a proposer to note the contents of the report, please? Councillor Rutland, and a seconder, Councillor Warraven. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Yep. Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? No. Thank you. And secondly, to agree about the 2024 Christmas Magic event, as we discussed. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Honeyman and Councillor Bristow as seconder. All those in favour of agreeing with the Christmas Magic event? That's unanimous. No abstainers, no dissenters. Thank you. Good. Right. Item 5. This is to discuss the project log. And again, this is the results.
So just to say first, very rude of me, I didn't introduce our new officer who's sitting here, which is Chris, who's joined us on a temporary basis. We'd like him to stay forever, of course, to work through some of the really urgent projects that we have got in this report. So, the project log, oh, sorry, I was looking down. So the project log lists all the projects that have come to us. They lots of them don't really get a discussion. They just got put on the list, and at some stage we will be going through them. You've got the status of the projects, and that's changed based on the discussion from December. Community services, where you felt it wasn't clear. Actually, I thought you were absolutely right. So we've now gone for active, new, and we've pulled them together, the active and new ones at the top, and then others on hold go towards the end. Oh, actually, there's no on holds on here. Okay. This is a reflection of the workload that is in front of us. We, at the moment, have allocated officers to some of the work, and that will be work you see coming through, but the majority of these projects on this list don't have an officer attached to the work.
Questions, comments? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an impressive list. I was, the word that comes to mind is gobsmacked, but that's not the word for the minutes. I wondered a couple of things. So in the introduction 1-2, each project has a status which is reviewed every 2 weeks. Assume that means internally reviewed. It's reviewed,
Yes.
Yeah, it might. Because as someone who's new to council, I'm thinking, really? You know, but it's going to be reviewed internally, and I was slightly confused with occasionally there's a. So can you just explain the status list, because
Yes.
it changes colour and there's also different things said in there. Can you just clarify that?
Yes. I have no idea why some of it's dark and some isn't.
Oh, okay.
I think something's something's
that was
happened
what
with the
was
printing
confusing.
there. When it's active, it should be green. And I think what's happened is,
Right.
so the green shading has not come through. So basically this is colour coded as well.
Okay.
But
Fine.
the
That's
words, yeah.
fine. And just one more sub question, which is so is there so when it finishes, when it ends, is there another column?
So really good question. We have a completed projects list that
Right.
is moved off this onto the completed projects list. My plan is to bring the completed projects list to you
Okay.
for you to have a look at, and that will come. We haven't done the year's cycle yet, so that's likely to come in June.
That's fine. Thank you. It's work in progress, and I thought it was
Yeah.
really helpful.
I think it is very much work in progress, but it's putting everything down that's happening and then trying
Yeah.
to see, can we stratify it, can we show what the officers are doing in terms of workload, and obviously there are some things that are routine and annual, some are big one-off projects, some are smaller strategic documents, etc. So it's
Yeah.
quite a mixture, but I think actually having them all written down, as we say, is a great start, but it needs refining of how are we going to use this, how are we going to review it. It's a working document with no rights and wrongs, really.
That's helpful. Can I just respond to that? That's helpful to know. I did think partway through, I thought some of these things seem quite minor and
Yes.
some are quite major, and maybe is the minor one or is it project? You know, but you know, it is with a document like this, it kind of takes that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rutland.
I'm curious, item 44, what is a men's shed?
So
My thoughts
the men's,
entirely.
yeah. So the
I have one at the end of my garden, it's full of gin.
yeah. So the
Not for minutes.
The men's shed is a concept around mental health, and there's been a lot of research showing that men working together will talk about things that they won't talk about if women are in the room or if the men are just sat round in a circle. So we were approached by public health and asked would we look to see if we had space or a piece of land where a shed could be placed, so they would then do the rest of the work. So I put it on the list. This will mean very little work for us, but we do need to identify where that could be sited, and we've got some interesting ideas on what that actually could be, but we don't really have anything like this in Seaford, and that concept of men's
I've never heard of this
wellbeing.
idea before at all.
Yeah.
So, and where do you think it might go?
Where? So we haven't finalised anything yet. One of the things there is a women's type working area we've discovered. So we're thinking about maybe shared usage, but not together, to keep that individuality in terms of that mental health
Put
and
them side by
wellbeing.
side, we might get them confused with the toilets.
And so that it's a project that hasn't really been given an officer yet, but we wanted to see whether it had any scope at all.
Okay. And then one other question, just for my ignorance, item 47. What is an MOU?
Oh, so that's at the moment I say this, she'll say, oh yeah, memorandum of understanding.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so memorandum of understanding. So a lot of the agreements we have, for example, like with Bonfire Society, like with the allotments, which should have some framework and some understanding. The lifeguards is a good example. And so what we've done is taken on the project to look at where we have MOUs, are they fit for purpose? And actually, have we got relationships with organisations where we have no basis for that conversation, and actually we should put some sort of basis or obligation in place?
It makes sense now, but obviously, in my job, there's jargon that we use, and everyone in the industry knows it straight
We
away.
need to change
And
that.
I've no idea what an MOU agreement
No, it's a
was.
really good point,
That
we'll
could
make
be-
that.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah. And usually customers are too embarrassed to say, what is that mean? We'll just carry on regardless.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the list. There really is a lot going on, isn't there? So please don't take this as me picking too much, but I just noticed as we're talking about men's shed, it says completion 2023, so I'm assuming that's a bit of a typo. But moving on, 45, the Mercury Centre, plans for a cycle rack, green compost, outdoor container and community garden, etc. I mean, we already have a community garden at the Crouch, but I'm just wondering, is that something that we're looking into feasibility, or the fact that it says it's active, is that an approved project? Because I know that came to or it was vaguely mentioned at the stakeholders group last time, but I don't think it's had a sort of green light from the committee.
So what's changed is they've put in a sill bid to LDC, of which some of these are aspects of that sill bid.
Okay.
So that has pushed this project from something that we maybe would have said we're really busy, we need to hold back, and now we need to pay attention to it. Some of the impacts of the things they've requested will affect the land that we own.
That's quite interesting, because obviously the Mercury's got its own lease and so on, so I'm just wondering how we've allowed a bid to go forward on our land without it having come to committee.
So it's on their land, but one of the things, for example, is they're looking for a heat pump.
Okay.
And that heat pump, I know from experience, will need to be sited next to their building, outside,
Okay.
and they have a very tiny edge.
Yeah, sure.
So we are involved in, we will be forced into conversations
Fair
around,
enough.
can they put the heat pump there or not? But
Yeah.
this bid came in, I think a week ago, so
Okay.
it just landed.
Fresh off the
Yeah, it's
fresh.
really hot
Okay.
stuff. So it's forced that into being active. The cycle rack will actually sit not on our land, will sit on theirs.
Okay.
But there's a whole piece of work working out the impact. And it's a big sill bid. It's 100 and something odd thousand.
Thanks for clarifying that. The other two things that I wanted to raise, I'm really interested and excited to know a bit more about Project 3, that is the bid writer framework, the options to attract external funding for project work. I noticed it's actually got today's date, and I may have missed it somewhere, but I don't know.
So no, you haven't. It was coming to this committee, and this was all put together. And then I think it was felt that it needed to go to full council. So it's written and ready to go, and it will be going to full council, I think, for the next meeting.
Okay.
And so the framework of that is about looking at how we employ someone or have a 0-hour contract, or do it on a consult basis to help us attract more funding in.
That's great, I think that's really important, thank you. Last but not least, item 13, the community orchard with Brighton Permaculture. I'm just wondering what sites are being looked at, because I know there's other things going on sort of on the district council level, so I'm just wondering how it sort of fits into that or doesn't fit into that.
So that's very young. We met with them and had a conversation because you have certain planting times for trees. So it was one of those get on or let the bus go. And at the moment nothing's been landed or decided. We would have to bring it to this committee for agreement, whatever comes out of those meetings. So it's on there. They've been speaking to us. They have money as well, so that's really helpful. So it's best that we partner with them in some way, but there's nothing yet.
Thanks for that, that's really useful.
Okay. Councillor Meek.
Thank you. Two things. To do with the man shed. Would it be, there's a guy I know who started up a men's mental health foundation thing in Seaford called Mountain Men,
Okay.
and on Saturdays or Sundays he goes for a walk with blokes, with the dogs, and it's an opportunity for blokes just to offload, and a lot of people have found it very helpful. It's kind of on the internet, He's begun to get some funding for it, things like that. So it sounds like that might be quite a good tie-up.
Would.
He's a young guy. He's done a psychology course and he's doing a clinical psychology course at the moment. So so he's kind of into that.
Yeah.
Having had some mental health problems himself. So I think that might be something really good to tie into, which we could support. Yeah. The other thing is, obviously, as has been said, it's a big list of projects. I wonder how, as you just said, something's just been prioritised. How are these things going to be triaged? Are officers going to kind of decide what needs to go, or will there be any kind of input from councillors? How is that? I know it's probably difficult for you to do that on a day-to-day basis, but just wonder how that might be governed, because obviously it's huge decisions really. As Councillor Taylor said, do you prioritise a small one because it's maybe easy to do, or actually does that take away from the big one that you might want to be pushing for?
It's a really, really important question, and it's something that I've talked about with Adam and the team quite a lot, because I said, how long do we keep adding to this list before we make a decision that actually we need to cull what's on there? Fundamentally, everything goes onto this list if it comes via a suggestion or a member of the public wants it, because we at that point haven't used any judgment at all, any measurement process, any matrix to decide your idea is no good, we're not going to support it. That role is councillors. We are officers and we do the work. So what we've done is everything's gone on there, and when it comes time for a piece of work to come up that has been forced forward, then it comes to you via, usually I do a trailer first saying this piece of work looks like it's going to come your way, so you can read about it, and then the next report will be the detailed piece of work. So in terms of when we sit back and go, yippee, we don't have any work, which project do we pick up? That's never happened to us. I can't see it happening for at least till 2025. We are so loaded with work, but we do need to consider how we manage that. And because I know we're not going to have space to choose projects until 2025, I feel a little more relaxed with saying we'll just leave the list and think about how we properly will work this through. But I think it needs to come to councillors. This is about work that affects the areas you represent. So I think you need to be involved in that.
Yes, number 34 again, Fields in Trust. Obviously that's been going on quite a long time over the years, so I wondered when we're going to get an update on that.
So Jeff was working on it. Jeff
Johnson.
Johnson, yes. And we did think it was coming to this community services. It hasn't made it. So I'm assuming it will come to the next one. So he was actively, when I emailed him about it, he said, I'm actually working on it at the moment.
Okay, great. And another question, one of my favourite ones I've been bringing up for years, but I've noticed it's not on here anymore. The Rainbow Bench update is disappeared off this list. So is that gone on? So when it was talked about, like James said, when projects are completed, they go on another list. Is there a list where people go, do you know what, maybe we're not going to do that anymore or something?
So
it was on hold.
Yeah, it's on hold, and what's happened is that I've noticed the on holds on here. There's
That's
more
what I
projects on this.
I just wondered what
Yeah,
happened.
and
There's
they
a
were
project that's been in since like the pandemic, and when I was checking it, so I'm always looking out to see what's going on with it.
Yeah, and I think this time the on holds have not been added.
Right.
Right, I think I'll take two more questions because we're still fairly early in the meeting and we've got quite a lot to discuss. Councillor Honeyman.
Couple of things. My mystery items, which Louise does know about, is one of them's in here and the other one I will have to have a discussion with you. She hasn't quite guessed what they are. There's a couple of items I think that we should be doing. One of them is in here now. I won't talk about it. I keep it a bit more of a mystery. But the other question, back to Christmas Magic, 29. The days are gone with the old lights when they were no good. You basically hire them now, so you don't have your own lights anymore. Is that correct? So do you know what sort of lights you get, or is there companies who have rafts of old second-hand lights that you reuse every year? That's one sort of question. So how do you know what you're getting? I mean, I suppose it depends on what you ask for, partly, I suppose, and what sort of display you want. I suppose there's a. Anyway, that's one question. But I was interested in that. And the other question, the open spaces filming strategy. I mean, we're talking the whole of Seaford, or we're talking specifically up up by the barn and down towards south and the cottages there, Coast Guard cottages, or are you thinking the whole lot? That's the other question. And obviously, you know, the other side of the boundary, when you get into Wilden, they have a different company does that side of filming. So are you trying to tie it in with similar sort of terms and conditions with what they do? And that's why, because you're in the same area, aren't you? Usually?
Two questions. One about ownership of the Christmas lights going forward, and one about filming strategies.
Okay. So Christmas lights, we currently own our Christmas lights and we pay for them to be stored with the contractor that delivers our service of install and removal. That contract is coming to an end after this year. We will be reviewing and bringing the information to this committee to look at of whether we go forward with the same process or we look at changing that. With regards to the filming, that is for the whole of Seaford because we have got lots of lovely places in Seaford and it would be great if we could concentrate on all of it rather than just the nature reserve.
And similar to what Wilden do, is that not related really? Or?
Wilden use an outside company to look after that.
That's why
I've met with that company and it was decided after the meeting that that wasn't the right process for Seaford.
Okay.
Because our site is a SSSI site and they don't always attend the filming. They're not always on site when the filming is happening and we felt that somebody had to be on site and that is why we have the current agreement with our filming liaison manager.
Okay, that's fine, thank you.
Right. Councillor Walroden has a question on this.
It's just an update on item 32, the defibrillators. Just that Seaford Rotary have now raised, or the residents have raised over half towards the defibrillator because it's costing a little bit more because it's going to be solar. And we're going to do another push with the residents and hopefully the Rotary will put towards the rest of it. So, you know, it's getting there. But I just thought I'd update everyone.
We're ready.
Yeah.
And we're very grateful for local fundraisers for such good causes, so thank you in advance. Right, okay, I think we're now ready to bring this part to a close.
Right, one more question.
Go on, since it's you, but please make it snappy.
Okay. Well, there's actually two aspects to it, sorry. One, the concession handover. Do we know when the concessions are being handed over and who the new concession holder is? When will we know who's won the relative concessions for the Salts and Mottello and beach huts and things like that?
I think it's going to be Monday, you'll know.
Cool.
The evaluation was done today.
Great.
So, and that's all landed. The letters have been prepared, and at that point, I'm assuming an email will go out, probably from Adam, letting you know the results of the 4 concessions that went out. Well, in fact, 6 went out, 2 we have to go again with.
Okay, good to know. And last year, one of the most contentious issues on the seafront was motorhome parking.
Yeah.
Which really mattered to all the residents a lot. It's probably the one that had the biggest sort of objections from everybody. So what is being considered about parking and signage? Because now West Beach is now no longer available for motorhome parking over New Haven. That's all closed.
So there
That
is.
is a separate issue that has been discussed in a wider meeting 2 days ago, but it's not really part of this.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it is going forward, and I'm happy to debrief you.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Perhaps apart from this meeting, if that's
No
okay.
problem. In which case,
Right,
Parking.
okay, so can I bring section 4 to a close and ask for a proposer to note the contents of the report and the project log, and the proposer, Councillor Meek, seconder, Councillor Rutland. All in favour? Thank you. That's everybody? Any abstainers? Anyone against? No, passed unanimously, thank you. Right. item 6. This is to inform Community Service Committee of income and expenditure. We don't have Lucy Clark, do we? Are you going to talk
Yeah.
to this?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I can. So I think really helpfully it now has a variance report which takes you straight through the differences. That's page 33, 34, 35 and 36. And gives you why some of the budgets and the figures have changed. The report basically says that we have gone over budget, but the expenditure that is lower than expected for the time of year. The overall income, sorry, let me say that again. The income is higher, but our expenditure is lower.
So we're doing quite well, I think
Yes.
is the general answer.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Rubbish. I'm now
Any
going
comments
to
or questions? Councillor Rutland.
I would commend the finance department and whoever prepared these reports, because for those people who aren't used to looking over balance sheets, you can actually understand what's going on. And I think a lot of work has gone into this, and somebody deserves a pat on the back. Good work, very good work indeed.
We shall pass that on to our
Yeah,
finance
we
team.
will do.
But thank you, it's good to give good feedback and
Absolutely.
praise where praise is due.
Well, it's all people off there, but good job. Yeah, we don't, lots of
Okay,
pat on the back, is it?
thank you.
I would just like
Councillor
to
Honeyman.
echo Councillor Rutland, like, I have to admit, I now go straight to like the Appendix B bit. I don't bother with that bit. I just look just straight to Appendix B because it's easy to understand and easy to understand the explanations.
I was impressed at just how much money we are making from filming, that we are very lucky to live in a wonderful photogenic place where people want to pay us to take photos and make films. I think it's something really rather wonderful about living here, and we never take it for granted. Councillor Lee.
So just on that point, we might have to contend with quite an influx of visitors this spring when this Chinese Netflix or whatever film gets released, a 3-part thing which has all been filmed on our property, and it might be very, very popular, and rather like the Korean people come to look at the Seven Sisters because of the 17 lucky number. This Chinese film is all about, the cup mirror is this serpent apparently, and it's all kind of very symbolic. So it's natural that we may have quite an influx of people, and that's the dichotomy we're in when we've got an SSSI and we're going to have an increase in people wanting to walk all over it just to say I went there. But I don't know how we handle that. It's like the Southend Barn project. It's a difficult thing to make the balance. I don't know how we get through that, but
Agreed.
further discussions.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? Right, okay. So, can I have a proposer to help note the contents of the report? Councillor Walraven, and a seconder, please. Councillor Meek, thank you. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. Anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Right, thank you. That's unanimous. Right, so we're on grass verges. So this is agenda item number 7, and I'm pleased to introduce Chris Moore, who is our temporary projects officer, who's going to inform us about progress towards appointing a verge cutting contractor through a formal tendering process. Over to you, Chris.
Very happy to. Thank you, Chair. Just by way of introduction, I've worked with peers of yours at local authorities all over the country, working on different projects, from capital building projects to tendering. So this is comfortable territory for me, but I do know that for a lot of people it's just an absolute bore or a turn-off. But tenders are a good practice in terms of getting good value for taxpayers, and also in terms of having the right kind of relationship with a contractor. So it's to some extent we dance on a pin, because what we want is a relationship that can give and take. But what we have to nail down is what will happen if something happens, or what if something doesn't happen. So, key to that, you won't be surprised to hear, is getting a good procedure in place and a good document in place. Some of you will have seen, I'm sure, tender documents that are on one side of A4, I certainly have. And then at the other extreme, perhaps at county level typically, where they can afford more solicitors to change all the wills to shalls. At that end, you can have, it's not unusual to have tenders running into hundreds of pages, much of it back covering and legalese. But so we set out to strike a happy balance on this one. It's still quite a lengthy document, but it's tightened up so that we know what to expect, and so that the contract should be easier, or as easy as it can be to manage, given that people are involved. And they have a tendency to disrupt your best plans. So the tender is drafted, and I've literally just come from working on what I hope will be the final draft. And that will be announced. We were going to go for Monday, but because of various people's diaries, that tender will be on the Town Council website tomorrow now, and also on the tendering website that we use. And there'll be a press release on Monday. The potential tenderers will have around about a month to get back, which is also good practice, because especially for smaller companies, small and medium enterprises, it's a lot to do on top of their day jobs. So we try to give them, a goodly amount of time to do it. It's all right for the big boys and girls, because they've got literally people sitting around and all they do is write bids and respond to tenders. But you don't want to exclude small and medium enterprises, and you do want to attract, I know you have it as a policy, as many small and local businesses as you can. So this is part of the way of doing that, is to give them plenty of time to respond. It's also good practice to be as transparent as possible about how they're evaluated and scored, and how the eventual decision is made. So quite a lot of the document is given over to what we're looking for and how we're going to grade or to rate it. And again, you have to be careful, at least, because I have seen situations where the system has actually been designed so well that you don't get the outcome that you really wanted. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing that you can do is appoint a contractor, like a member of staff, whom you absolutely cannot work with. They might look great on paper, but if they can't sit down in a room with you, look you in the eye and negotiate with you, you're just buying a whole load of pain. So it's a very transparent process. I am very, very well aware that it's a lot for a small business to do, so we've encouraged throughout the document that if people are feeling, it's just too much, that they drop us a line, and then we'll see what we do about that. It might just be talking them through and coaching them. It might be suggesting that a different approach to, if there's part of the form they haven't done before, it might be outlining how they could be approaching it, that kind of thing. And again, in terms of good practice, a debrief at the end for the successful and the unsuccessful tenderers is good practice. Word gets about when you do that sort of thing and you do it properly and do it well, and I'm sure we will. So that's pretty well it. It's only focused on the urban verges, this contract, so it doesn't go out into the country. It's only within the town. And the other challenge, of course, the other challenge that we have, as everybody has, is again striking a balance between verges that are attractive and don't invite emails, calls by the dozen, which they can. Think toilets are bad, try verges. And a balance between that and encouraging wildlife and wildflowers to grow. So broad shape of the contract is that for the first couple of years, we're setting the scene really, to make a platform, if you like, on which to experiment with different cut and take away, cut and leave for the verges. And that's why we structured it so that there's a commitment to 2 years, because a contractor can't do anything useful in 1 year. A commitment to 2 years with an option then for a 3 and a 2, or 2 and a 3. So if it's all working out, we can extend that arrangement, and if it's not, we've got a chance to turn it over and start again.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
So I think we did go into this in great detail in the last community services meeting, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity to use our climate change subcommittee and the experts who are feeding into that to give the technical advice to help with the ongoing flexible decisions about how these verges are doing and how many times they actually need to have cut and collect. So I think it's complexity, it's expertise, and it's flexibility as well to actually try and get this right, particularly in the critical first year. Councillor.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the work on this. It hasn't been light. It's really good.
Thank you.
I'm slightly worried about what I'm going to say because I fear there's been quite a miscommunication perhaps since our last meeting. So we had a meeting with officers, with myself, with on the verge, and our meeting notes are actually over here. We discussed a 7-year plan, not a 5-year, and we were going to do 2 years of baseline.
Yeah, that's
fine. That's exactly what this.
It says cut and collect in year 1 and 2.
So this is a summary of the options within the contract, because within the contract we are asking them to give us prices, but the actual what the contract content is the 4 cuts based on that. On that discussion, and it's a drop, not a collect.
Right, okay. So we still can
it's exactly that.
We discussed the importance of having a characterisation
Yes.
of the baseline, even though we all want to get on with a cut and collect.
Yes.
From the point of view of actually the next 5 years and the long-term effects, it was going to be an increased number of cuts from the Sussex County Council number, which was 2 per year, but we felt it wasn't probably not going up to 6, but we may do. So we settled on a balance of 4, and then we were going to put things in place for the cut and collect versus
leave
trial.
For the rest of those 5 years you're seeing there, that decision goes to climate change in April, where as delegated at the December community services meeting, climate change would make the decision. What's important perhaps to share at this point is that we met with Trees for Seaford with their environmental expert, and they were heavily involved in how we arrived at what this contract might look like and why we actually decided to go for the cuts and drops and not start collecting, because we need to measure the quality of the soil before we go ahead and spend the taxpayers' money on collecting without being able to say by cut and collect we have improved soil quality. So we need that measurement, otherwise we cut and collect, pay quite a lot of money for that, and have no idea about the improvement of the soil. So those 2 years give us that starting point, and again this was all part of the discussion we had with the experts, and you were involved, Christina.
Yeah.
So that links into the idea of having a project which we're talking with the university to see if whether they will be interested in assessing the soil quality, or we'll get a specialist in so that we can actually evidence that by taking this ecological approach we have changed the outcomes for our verges and the sort of the nature impact by taking this approach. So it is incredibly complicated. But we need to start by measuring so we can evidence that the money we've chosen to spend has actually been spent wisely and had an eco impact.
Thank you, that's a really good thing. Just for the video, I'll just clarify. improving soil quality actually in terms of depletion for the,
Yes.
for the thing. So ironically depleting the soil probably.
Yeah, we don't want that
Yeah.
through bit, we want it to get worse.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm really
So are you happy to put that back? Is that your end of your
Yes,
comments?
thank you.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
This is, thank you for that, that was a good discussion. This is a discussion about the map. Because I'm Bishopstone Ward. Bishopstone Ward does not appear on this map. Now there is, and it doesn't appear on the council map, which is handed out downstairs. I remember when I first joined the council saying, Bishopstone's not on here, most of it. It cuts off the end as if it doesn't exist. Now, I know part of Bishopstone is rural, but a large part of it is not rural. It is developed, the bungalow area particularly. One would never describe that as rural. Whereas, yes, there is a valley going up to Norton, which is rural, with farms. So, it's just complicated in relation to, I was very interested, and I can see that it's important to have something that's called, a rural approach. And I think people who live along that stretch of Bishopstone Road, leading up to Norton, which is a dead end, with a vibrant hamlet, it's important to take that into consideration. But it's a bit complicated, could you please could we think about how to pay attention to that? Maybe you have already.
So we don't choose these areas. East Sussex actually has produced this and has decided on the areas. The same, just as background information, the same as they've decided what's.
So East Sussex County Council.
Yeah. So this is their map, their framework.
I should write to the council.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they're just wiping us out.
Yeah, this is a really difficult map to visualise, and that's why I asked for some of these to be copied.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
It is very, very difficult to get the right place at the right
Same as the
magnification.
map downstairs. It's on that, on the.
Okay.
I did want to comment. I obviously wasn't part of that discussion you had. I find this a bit shocking because I thought we were going to do cut and collect. I don't understand, having had cut and drop for the last 2 to 3 years, I don't understand why we can't test the soil now and then go straight into the new contract doing cut and collect, because then you'll be able to see, otherwise we're 2 years further down the line. When we've already got a situation where we've dropped for 2 or 3 years, you ought to be able to know whether the soil, what the condition of the soil is. Then you can do the collect, and 2 years later you can then measure, and you will know. I don't understand the point of carrying on for 2 years now doing a drop, which, I mean, I have so many people complaining to me about the stuff in the road, it blows into the road, it blows all over the pavements, you get grass seeding everywhere. It drives me mad, I go and rake it up outside my house. So that's a big problem for me, because I thought we'd agreed that before your meeting, that we would collect. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Okay. So this is a bit of controversy we hadn't seen before. Do you want to respond to this, or do you want to take this offline?
I can do. Well, a couple of things, and I'm really happy to speak about it more afterwards. But just on the Bishopstone, the bungalows area, that is in the urban part, and all these areas are set by East Sussex County Council, but the old Bishopstone Road, a lot of that comes under the rural scheme, which is actually the next item on the agenda, which we've been asked about as well as the council. So just to, you can see all the
But
maps
it is
online.
taken care of, the 2 different aspects of Bishopstone.
Yeah, and it through East Sussex really, because they set the areas.
Yeah, I get that.
Coming on to, so we had discussions with On the Verge and looking at what was happening in Dorset and actually other areas as well. There are other sort of environmental enhancement cut and collect schemes going on. And first of all, it was cost-wise that we felt, well, we knew that if we were going to be doing, say, 6 cut and collects initially, that was going to blow the budget. So what we decided to do instead was we need to characterise, it's not just the soil, it's the we need to do ecological surveys to see what species are there already, what species will be coming in, both in terms of flora and fauna. So we've got quite a unique opportunity in Seaford, because whereas things have been done, going to cut and collect before, it's mostly been out of town, highways and so on. There have been some pockets of urban, but nothing like sort of a town-wide scheme, and we felt that we had a really good opportunity, a kind of first mover advantage almost, to actually set this out to be something that was a proper study, as well as bringing impact to residents and to biodiversity and so on. So, we were all actually very keen to start the cut and collect as soon as we could, but we realised, looking at it scientifically, that we were going to need to have a characterisation and baseline to do that. Now, in lots of different wildlife and environmental monitoring projects that I've been involved with over the years, 2 years is a very, very quick to do proper characterisation and baselining, although it might sound like a long time to people. We were very cognisant that for residents at the moment, the 2 cuts offered by East Sussex County Council, also we don't have much control of when they'll be. I mean, okay, no one can control the weather, but that aside, we still don't, as a town council, have much control. So I know last year, we had sort of a perfect storm with the conditions, then the first cut not coming. I mean, where I was, it was about the 7th or 9th of July. The barley grass, or whatever you call it, was already really high. There was stuff everywhere and everyone, rightly so, complained. But so we sort of looked at some evidence that was out there, and we said, okay, well, let's leave some flexibility in the contract for the first couple of years. We felt that the contract needed to be for 2 years, as officers have said, because otherwise it wouldn't be attractive to the contractors coming forward if it was just a year's contract. Unfortunately, that's sort of, us coinciding or colliding with the commercial world. So we sort of gone for what we hope is a happy balance and a happy medium of 4 cut and drops, so that the arisings don't get quite as long. We actually have more control over when those cut and drops will be. We're still cutting and dropping, so we're actually not breaking what's gone on before in terms of the regime. We just changed the frequency slightly, and during that time it's hoped that we can get a robust baseline. We also then need to decide before year 3 where we're going to be doing cut and collect and where we're going to keep cut and dropping, and how much of that area will be, because it's not going to be the whole of Seaford for cost purposes. And also, this is sort of coming back to this, we've got an opportunity here to have some control areas essentially, and then do the experiment on the cut and collect and come back with some really robust results. We hope, obviously, that in a few years' time, the cut and collect areas will show those vital signs of soil change and so on, so that the wilder plants come in, that it's not growing quite so fervently as everywhere else, and it's not being such a pain, to be honest, to residents. Because the cut and collect, having spoken to ecologists and so on informally, who I know, they've said, it can take about 10 years to evidence. It can be quicker. I think down in Dorset they've started seeing more results after maybe around 5 or 6. But it was really a case of, let's do something now, but let's also do it for the future, so that we can get some robust results and cost results, so that we can say, yes, we've got a really solid foundation to go forward and do this, for the next 20 years if the results of the experiment suggest, which we hope they will. So that's kind of why we were all really excited, and I think, I certainly felt how you felt at the beginning, but having given it a bit more thought, that's why we came to that. So I hope that helps. I mean, I may not persuade you completely, but I hope that helps to...
Councillor Bishop, when you say we, who do you mean?
Oh, sorry, On the Verge, and officers, we had to obviously take into account the practicalities of contracts and costs and so on. Myself, Councillor Buchanan wasn't there because he was away. It was, yeah.
And you haven't had the opportunity to feed back to your subgroup because they haven't been...
Yeah, we haven't met yet. Yeah.
Okay, can I suggest, thanks very much for that, can I suggest any further discussions we take offline, because I'm just a little bit aware of the time. One more comment or question, please.
Sorry, it's just on page 51. About the daffodils being left and it says it's going to be left to the 1st of July. I did actually look it up because I thought that was a very long time before you could actually cut, and it actually,
6 weeks.
it's 6 weeks. So
Okay.
even if they finish mid to late March, that's mid-May to late May.
Okay, that's
And I
helpful.
just thought, oh, that's a long time with it
Okay,
looking
thank you,
a bit
that's really
tatty.
helpful, councillor.
I know it's a bit minor compared to all the discussion, but I just thought that seemed a long time.
Yeah, they look awful when they're that
Well,
long.
exactly, you just want
Okay,
to...
one last question.
Not a question, could I just commend Chris Moore? I think that tender is a fantastic document.
Thank you.
I think it's really good, and I do hope that the people take note of what you said, come to us if you think this is too onerous, because I hope they will. Because I do think it's daunting.
It is.
It's really daunting, particularly for small businesses.
Yeah.
I've known small builders who said, well, I just can't do all that, I just have to do the building.
Yeah.
But-
I played poacher and gamekeeper with this, so
So I think it's really well set out and very comprehensive.
thank you.
So congratulations. Thank you.
I echo that, thank you. Right, okay, so can I have a proposer to know the contents of the report? Councillor Meek, a seconder, Councillor Rutland. All of those in favour? Anyone abstaining? Anyone against? That's unanimous, thank you. So now we're moving on from the urban cutting to the rural cutting. So this is section 8. Chris,
Yeah, so,
Do you want to do the
yeah,
background, please?
yeah, so this, much like the Verges, came to us as an option in January. When I say like the Verges, very short time scale, with a decision having to be made by the 27th of February. So not even giving us enough time to come to committee to get a decision. We did go to On the Verge and speak to their, send an email to their eco expert, and we involved Christina as part of the process to look at decision making, because that was delegated to Christina in the December community services meeting, and that the detail about what we decided was delegated to her, and this is the detail. The options actually between 1 and 2 are very small. One is you cut less, and the advice from the eco expert was, again, because it's not a cut and collect, it's just a cut and drop, it really makes very little difference, stick with option 1. So we took that advice, we spoke with Christina, and based on that have recommended that we go with option 1. We have to go back by the 27th on that, but this one we've got an option to change should, as we get things underway and we understand the impact, we can go and change it year on year. So unlike the Verges where you have to be in or out, this one is some flexibility. So
do you want to add anything?
Yes, a couple of
Yeah.
things. We weren't given the option on this one to take it in-house, unfortunately. I did ask that question, but that wasn't on the table. But that wasn't to say that it wouldn't be on the table in the future. I think it will be on the table in the future, but it wasn't for this. Excuse me, for this year. The other slightly complicating factor is the people who knew what they were doing with this stuff at ESCC have left or moved on or been promoted or demoted or buried, I don't know. And so they're all at sea there.
at East Sussex County
Yeah,
Council.
at East Sussex County
Yeah.
Council. They are somewhat
Yeah.
at sea, I think it's fair to say. But we're talking about that. They've got an appointment coming up soon, a new member of staff. So I'm sure we'll be able to crack through and improve the communications again. But this all sort of fell, the perfect storm kind of thing. All the staff changing, short deadline to do it, but it's in there now. So.
Questions, queries? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I felt relieved actually when I got to point 3.4, and that you had decided, or it was decided that you're going to go with option 1, because there's not been any consultation with people that I'm aware of who live up on that strip, and all hell would have broken loose if we hadn't consulted. So there's some very vociferous people who live along there.
Right.
So Yeah, thank you for that. And it can be changed in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a good.
Councillor Bristol.
Just quickly to say another reason, personally that I felt staying with the status quo just for this coming year is because of what we're looking to do with the urban side of things, and from a sort of point of view of, if we are going to be going ahead with the study, I didn't want to change what's going on in the rural setting that's adjacent and change that kind of backdrop and have another variable in there. And whilst I in no way want to say that any of the rural areas are less significant by saying this, comparatively to the urban areas in terms of distance, it is much less than the coverage of the urban regime around Seaford. So, I sort of felt that on balance, carrying on for a year, seeing as we hadn't had an opportunity to discuss it, hadn't had an opportunity to consult and think about that was kind of the way to go. And it's great that we've got the opportunity, if we want to, year on year, to change it, unlike the others. So, yeah.
So, we're asked two things. One, to recommend to note that option 1 is being pursued for rural grass cutting, which is not the urban verges as the previous section, and this is from East Sussex County Council. And secondly, to note that should the Town Council wish to change its rural grass cutting arrangements in the future, this would take place from the grass cutting season following the decision where it's been having been made. So I think I'll take these two together, because they seem to run in and make sense. So can I have a proposal for items 1 and 2, please? Councillor Taylor, and can I have a seconder, please, for both sections? Seconder? Oh, sorry. Councillor Hannon, thank you very much. Can I have a show of hands, those in favour of this proposal? Okay, anyone abstaining? Anyone against? We're having a very uncontroversial meeting so far.
Don't jinx it yet.
We've got a little, right, thank you.
There's no point.
Don't say that. Is everybody okay, or would anyone like a comfort break?
No, special.
Special.
Right, last battle. Right, okay, so this is the second pile of agendas. This is agenda item 9, and this is again Chris Moore to inform the committee about progress towards a public toilet cleaning contractor through a formal tendering process.
It is indeed.
Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you know, we are responsible for a number of public conveniences. They're listed in this document, and there's an opportunity to bring together the cleaning of all those sites under one contract with, we intend, one approach, and we can get better value by putting these all together in the same contract. So that's really the thinking. You'll probably also be aware that after car parking, nationally, toilets are probably the most complained about thing as far as local authorities are concerned. So it's important to get those things absolutely right. It seems to be like a stage, and it's a place where we can make ourselves look good or bad. So again, it's about having a good system in place to work with a contractor, not to get necessarily too chummy with them, but to work constructively with them and monitor what they're doing, and also help them to improve the service that they offer through dialogue. Most contractors in most fields, as they gain more experience, find ways to improve their own services and to reduce their costs. It's in the nature of their businesses to do that, and so it's in our interest to help them to do that and to do it positively and constructively, being at the same time prepared to hold up specific paragraphs in the contract where we're not getting the performance that we need. So to give you an idea, therefore some of the key performance indicators on this will be about complaints that we get, with a target of 0. And the discussions will take place around that. This tender goes out a little bit later, and the closing date will be the 8th of April for us to be opening them, the tenders here. My experience of this process is that it's not enough just to kind of cast the tender out there in the hope that, you know, there are hundreds of tendering companies just sitting there waiting for crumbs from local authorities' table. They're not. So there will be, we'll think carefully about how we publicise this tender in particular, and how we might go about some soft testing of the market, which basically means contacting potential contractors, giving them an idea of what's involved, and getting their immediate feedback about whether they're likely to tender or not. You can learn an awful lot just with a few phone calls.
You could say you're giving them something to go with.
We've done all those jokes.
Yeah.
We've done all of them. So that is the tender. Obviously, I was able to follow a very similar structure to the Verges tender, so we're already saving time on this by having a template to work to. And in the longer term, Louise and Adam have asked us to work on a set procedure and a usable template that is accessible to people who are not experts in procurement. And I think that's a highly sensible way to go. And I've seen it done successfully as well. So that's a longer term outcome.
So a couple of, just on key details, we have changed, we've learned, because we've been managing the toilet cleaning ourselves, which we haven't done before. So we've been managing that from October. We have learned quite a lot about what we'd like and have put into the contract things like during the summer holidays, Easter and during the summer and Easter, we'll have 3 cleans please, because we know that actually they're going to be used much more. We've also built in the option to command one-off extra cleans, so I'm thinking of bonfire night, or if we have a late summer or an early summer, and we have also asked them to be responsible officers, if you like, during the holiday and out of hours time, so that we can know that someone's going to answer the phone if the toilets are flooding. So those are changes that we've put in, and it takes some of the pressure off us. We do spend a lot of our time in the toilets, unfortunately. So we will be asking them to use our contractors, and that goes on to a later report in here. So they're not going to be using theirs, it will be ours, but we'll give them the contact details. So there's lots of learning from the time we've had the contract. On top of that, we also worked with Lewis District, who did clean our toilets, to say, and Chris I know met with the manager of the toilets and said, can you look over our contract? Because obviously we've not had a contract before. She's done that and said, yeah, you've got all the key areas covered.
She also has some very good tips.
Great.
It sounds like you're covering all the bases.
Yeah.
Any questions, comments? Bad loo jokes are not allowed at this time of night, I promise you. Councillor Rutland, I have your name. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Honeyman.
Just a few little comments. In 2.7 on page 71, it just says cleaning frequency increased 3 times a day on Easter and Christmas holidays. Should that be summer holidays?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
it should.
It should
Thank
say
you.
summer.
Good spot.
Should be summer. I know
Yeah.
further on it's the right amount.
Yeah.
And then in 2.8, I was just a bit concerned about the toilets locking. I know April to September, but locking at 7 in the height of the summer. Is 7 o'clock too early? Or should it be 8 o'clock, for example?
Do you know, we can change this.
Right.
What we've done is we've put in that they will be responsible for locking those for the certain times. Because of the way Chris has worded the tender, there's areas where we can negotiate.
Right,
So
okay.
if we're finding that's a real problem, then we can speak to the contractor and say, actually, can we make some changes here?
Yeah, because I know once, I think it was last time or the summer before, I was trying to use some facilities, but they were starting to lock them up at just before 7. I thought, but it's still daylight, it's summer evening, this is too early, but unfortunately the reason the chap was doing it is because he had to go and lock all the toilets in sort of here, Eastbourne, Lewis, all over the place, so he had to go round. But I just thought if it's going to be more individual contractors, whether it could be a little bit later, obviously. Just for the time, you know, April might be too early, but just the key, really busy.
I think we're also keen to say not before, so that's why we put the time in. So you can't, because of that round, so we know you can't lock them before 7. But yeah, we can definitely look at that if we get complaints, particularly.
Councillor Rutland.
I say ideal time to lock them will be when it gets dark, you know, dusk. And obviously throughout the summer, you know, it's light up until 10 o'clock at night and people are on the beach while it's light. So I quite often am working in Eastbourne, and there's some toilets there down by the Sovereign Harbour, and they're locked electronically. It's one of those key lock things which is on a mechanism which they can alter the time from somebody's computer somewhere, God knows how, but they can adjust it. So maybe some sort of mechanism. But dusk is
not the case at the moment, though, is it?
No, but dusk is, I would say, would be a good guideline.
They have found they have had some problems with that though.
They have.
Because the doors are very weighted and heavy, so particularly on the disabled toilets, that some people are struggling to open and close the doors. So yeah, it would be something we'd have to look at, I think, to make sure that it's still accessible for all.
Well, we've got the changing rooms facility for disabled, so assuming the people in and out of the loos are not disabled, there are disabled facilities for that. And so the change rooms facility is awesome and absolutely brilliant, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing that. But yeah.
Okay, Councillor Meek.
No jokes in there.
I presume that, you know, that the costing of this has been based on your experience and on known costs, but it seems to me that this is quite a low expectation of cost, considering this is a kind of very intensive, requirement. You know, every day of the year bar 2, and doing the evenings 2 cleans a day. And I mean, it's a lot of work. You know. By the time you finish going around, you'll be doing the midday shift and then going the evening shift.
Some of the data is historic, so we've got that from activity that's gone on here before. Some of it I've pulled in from other sources, but I would keep a really close eye on that, because what I haven't really factored in is how their material costs.
Well, I was going to say that as well.
Yeah, and I don't think I really took that on board, so I'll have a careful look at that. Thank you.
We have been paying for 3 cleans at the moment.
All right, so you must know. Thanks. Good.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Any more comments? Okay. And I'd just like to say thank you once again. I mean, these tender documents are clear and very helpful.
I just want to back on what Councillor Rutland said about doors with disability. I know some people with the place lane toilets, because the door is very stiff, if you haven't got, you're not strong, people have been struggling to give you the doors, because that's something we've been commenting to Lewis District Council Cabinet members about the fact the issues with the fact they're now shutting the door is making it harder for people to get into the toilets because of the weight of them. So just thought I'd just bring that up, that is a problem that's going on there at the moment.
And they have found that people are wedging the doors open and they're not locking.
Yes.
So then their toilet facilities aren't securely locked overnight, which we'd have to look at.
So all the better reason that we have a good relationship with a contractor who's able to feed these kind of things back, and therefore that we can deal with them before they get vandalised or whatever. So it sounds like a very good win-win situation. Right. So we're recommended to note the contents of the report. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Rutland and a seconder, Councillor Meek. All those in favour? Yeah. Anyone abstaining? Anyone dissenting? No. Right. So, Item 10, dog waste. Wonderful stuff this time of the day, isn't it? We're really living the best life, absolutely. So, this is to, again, to Chris Moore, to present the options for dog waste bins across Seaford for our consideration.
Yeah, so we move seamlessly to more of the same. When I was presented with the folder for this, I have to say it looked like a no-brainer to me to replace these bins with dual-use bins and to reduce the number of times for collection and to put in equipment that would have a good life in situ seems like a smart move straight off the bat. The figures had already been worked out. I can't claim that I did those. They also look very attractive to me, certainly. I think that the products themselves look robust and not unattractive considering what their purpose is. And I'm running out of things to say about dog waste bins now.
So just to summarise very quickly, the reason we put this forward to you is we met with the dog waste leads at LDC, who, when I asked why we were paying £6 per bin, they said we don't pay that. We pay £3 because we do this one collection. So we're basically bringing it in line with what Lewis District do themselves, and that is why we have to change the bins to make that single collection. It would be it's a shame that we've had to spend money on doing that, but we do, and then we're in line with exactly what Lewis District is doing. So we're not doing anything controversial. We were concerned about the impact in terms of the waste not being sorted when we obviously are disposing it as it's sorted, but we're told that when they collect it, they put it into the same container. Yeah, so we're just out of kilter with them. So this is really simply aligning us with them, and will save us half our budget by the time we pay for the bins year on year.
The other thing, sorry if I can just, the other thing to say is that Lewis District are also going through a lot of changes with that relevant department. So again, we're sort of waiting on an appointment to really get our teeth into this. And there will be two, there'll be two, sorry, a bad image. But there are two sort of phases to the work, because some of the bins require groundwork and some of them do not. So we've been encouraging, as gently as we can, LDC to do 2 blocks and to do them as closely together as they possibly can, so we don't have this whole thing extending for months and months and months. And I think they're open to that. So, good.
Councillor Bristow, I think you had your hand up.
Okay, anyone who knows me will know that dog waste, having been a cat person most of my life, is one of my pet subjects. After I came in, a lot of people contacted me about dog bins, and I was going around trying to fix dog bins. So I was thinking, I really welcome this, and I broadly support the intention of reducing costs, reducing the number of times they have to be emptied, and the carbon implications and all that kind of stuff. I informally run a dog walking group with about 40 or 50 dogs across Seaford and Newhaven, and I've been canvassing their opinions on this, and I'm also cognisant that with my Lewis District ward down at Seaford West, we had a trial of a new design of bin, which was it was a dual purpose bin for dog waste and for regular litter. It was actually quite a large one. It was a double one with 2 of the 112s by their size, but crucially it had a flap at the top, which was this kind of wildlife proof flap, and that was the reason why that went down there for a trial with the National Park having known about it and so on, is because of the wildlife in that area, and that was a direct replacement for a dog bin. We were finding down there that there was all sorts of litter being left next to the dog bin because there wasn't a regular refuse bin there, so that was kind of trying to service the need. And so far we've had pretty good feedback. The groundwork wasn't done, so it moved a bit in the wind, but that's because it was a trial. And it got me thinking about the finer detail of this, and I actually got in touch with Lewis District Council only this week. It's all happened quite last minute, including getting some information back today. My opinion and my concern with this is that we're putting dual purpose bins in theoretically into places where we've only had dog bins in the past. So we're actually introducing scope for, you know, your crisp packets and your sweet wrappers and all that kind of stuff. And Seaford being a very windy place with a lot of wildlife, and we've got a lot of dog bins around, you know, our green spaces, and quite crucially the Seaford Head Nature Reserve and golf course at the entrance there, which is obviously a sensitive environment. Whilst Lewis District on the whole, particularly in land, they have a good experience with, and you know, in town we've got them, don't we, with the black bins with the open slots, where you get into more nature settings where you've got effective wind, you've got wildlife, so on and so forth. I was a bit concerned that just having these open tops might not fare so well, and actually might do better with like the type of bin that we've got down at Tide Mills, maybe not the double but the single. So I was inquiring about that today, and I only just managed to copy you in, I'm afraid, this afternoon, because that's the way it fell. So there would be an option for a similar type of bin, which would actually be more rust resistant, so maybe a better long-term investment, with a flat, a single one. So I think it's ever so slightly dearer than the
£341 more per bin.
Yes, excellent. So I wonder whether we could consider as a committee varying the recommendation 2 to pursue option 3, but to look at installing the rust-proof, wildlife-proof bins in those areas which are either more exposed or closer to like the SSSI and wildlife places that, you know, might be more appropriate. It might be a better long-term investment, and better that we don't have, you know, bits of paper and plastic rubbish being taken out of the bins and strewn across.
How do you want
So
to consider this? Because obviously this is a variation on what we're being asked to
what we
consider.
could do is ask, so you change the motion to say, could officers investigate using the appropriate bins for, or
Location.
for the appropriate location. That would have a budget implication,
Yeah,
which would
it really depends on the numbers that we
Yeah.
would have, the different numbers, appropriate bins in appropriate locations. Okay. Right. Okay. Councillor Rutland.
Linking into that, a thought just occurred to me. Do we have enough bins, or should we have more? If we're saving half the cost of what we're doing now, if we had, you know, twice as many bins, it costs us the same as it does now. If we had sort of 50% more, we're still saving on what we're spending now. Is the quantity of bins we've got appropriate? Do we need more in certain places?
So, great question. We have been very single-minded, given the amount of work we're looking at, and gone for straight replacement at this point. If you want to commission a piece of work, surveying whether we need extra bins in different locations, that would be a separate project. And certainly I know, Christina, you've mentioned a couple of areas that you think there need to be extra bins, or you've been asked to have extra
What
bins.
amount of
by the
rate
time.
actually in some areas if we've
Yeah.
got increased capacity?
Yeah.
So we might not end up with more overall, but we might end up with better coverage.
Yeah. I know, for example, in
So basically, if we want to review where they are, that would be a separate project.
okay, because obviously, where I live, there's Edinburgh Road, and the bin at the end there, on a busy bank holiday, it is overflowing, and it's not big enough. So there are areas where additional facilities might be useful. It's just a question, if we're saving half the budget, we've got money in hand to either
So we're essentially talking about a bin review, not just a like for like that this proposal is. We're talking about something quite different and probably more open-ended than that, which may be...
It's just an idea that occurred to me.
Yeah, may not be for this discussion though. Councillor Bistrat and then Councillor Honeyman.
Yeah, just a quick point. I noticed in the report that officers say that when the new bins come in, we'll be doing some promotion and encouragement to use them because they'll look different for a start. So I really welcome that, and I just wanted to say that Mark the vet, who you might have heard of, has put himself forward to help us promote that. So if we want someone who's recognised and someone to come and do some videos or some promotion, he's quite a famous TV vet. He lives locally. Anyway, that's just by the by. But if we want to get that message out to people why it's important to pick up, use the new bins, get a few more hits and get the message out, then I know he'd be happy.
There's a might have bet on the chase. One of the chase main what was I going to say?
I don't know, Councillor.
The person who does the chase, the one you have to go against on the weekday afternoon ITV show. That's what we're talking about, isn't it, Christina?
It's just dog bins.
He's done a lot of campaigning on Lucy.
Yeah, he lives in Brighton area.
Yeah.
So okay. Right, a couple of things here which I'm not really clear at the moment. There's no argument there to say they need changing anyway, so I don't even know why they haven't been changed. Have they had their life? That's one question. They're going to be taken away. Can they be reused? Can we use them? Are they going to be recycled? Is there a market to use old dog bins somewhere in people's gardens or something? Or can they be given to SEA? Or is there a market to dispose them in a slightly different way as opposed to just dumping them as such? This is not very clear in this report, so I was trying to work out the arguments so two things: why we're doing it anyway, because what's wrong with the old ones? If they've got quite a lot of shelf life left, I know the secret ones you have changed. Because I think where it is, obviously you've got the very exposed to the weather, but there's no argument here to say why you have to do it. So that's what I'm interested in at this stage, and disposing and can we recycle them and not even use them.
Okay. Question about recycling the currently in use dog bins.
Yeah. So in terms of the next stage, if you approve for us to go forward, will be one to check we've got the most appropriate bin designs. But also, which we were going to do anyway, but also to look at what the project plan might be in terms of that replacement process. So that we will definitely be looking at what happens with the bins. What we don't want is the bins to be left there for us to deal with. We don't have the capacity to do that. So both of those, yes. Why are we doing it? Two reasons. One, for the carbon footprint, because they are emptying them many more times because they're single use, and two, because there is a big financial saving immediately. So it makes sense to look at that financial saving.
But is there? I don't know how much light I've got in you if you ignore them. Does it say? Well, yeah, but what do they do with them?
Well, I don't know. I'm just pointing out that 3.3 says that LDC would be responsible for removing and handling the old bins, because I remember checking that as well.
They charge you for that?
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, what they do. I would assume that's part of
the install process.
They could use like compost bins in places, they're not tiny. In places like Community Garden, for example, they might find there'd probably market for certain people, but you don't want to handle that, do you? That's what you're trying to say.
No. Sharon, do you just want to make your comment?
Yeah.
When we're changing the bins, we're not changing any of the ones on the seafront because that's already a programme that we've done. So it's more where the dog bins and the waste bins are. So it's those bins. So if you've got a standalone dog bin up on the Seaford Head by the barn, that will just be staying as a dog bin. We won't be changing it to a dual bin.
Thanks for that clarification, because I haven't worked that one out.
Yes, a couple of points, but I think they've already been raised, but I'm just going to say it'd be good to do an overhaul on the bins, because I did have resident who complained about a number of issues, and one of them was there wasn't enough bins in Broad Street.
Right.
So that would be really good to do if there was a review. And the other thing I thought, similar to what Christina's mentioned, is the fact that while we are going to be doing these new dog waste bins, we should also be running a campaign at the same time to encourage people to pick up their dog's mess, because I did have a resident last week who lived near Broad Street complaining about the amount of dog mess that was left around and not cleared up, and please do something. So I did contact them from Lewis District Council, who sent me a picture of the bundle of dog poo that was there, that was collected, and they then put new posters up. So I think we need to take like Chris, Councillor Bristow said, that we take the opportunity to promote the fact people do need to collect their dog poo.
Yeah, agree.
Councillor Bristow.
Yeah, just very quickly, we can definitely kind of bounce off what Lewis District Council do and get them to do things. I also did quite a lot of research recently into schemes which are out there that can utilise sort of community champions and volunteers, and it's something I would love to do in my spare time. So, you know, there's potentially more that we can do on that depending on sort of the timescales and how we go forward, just to put it out there as an option. Yeah.
Okay. So moving this forward, can I have a proposer to change the proposal for section 2? We need to...
I'll just very quickly come back with what Councillor Ruttner said, if that's all right.
Yes.
And it's not for discussion now, but it's almost like what you do on those very, very busy sort of summer weekends, the bank holiday weekends, when everything's hammered. And I just wondered if there's any plan that goes cross agency basis, what happens when it is really that busy, or just something we have to live with. Well, I know Councillor Ruttner did mention it, didn't it? Sometimes it can be really hammered in town, can't it, as we know, happened in the COVID time. I don't think, this is beyond this sort of scheme, isn't it, really, Lisa?
So it is, and we've discussed this at a previous community services
probably before my time.
meeting.
Yeah.
No, during my time,
Okay.
when Zoe was still with us, and we talked about the fact that we've spoken to LDC about maybe do we need bigger bins, and
Yeah.
they've said no, absolutely don't, because the bigger the bins, the more rubbish, the bigger bins, the more there is no point at which you haven't been big enough for the amount of rubbish that people are going to put in it. So the advice was, don't do it, stay with what you have.
I was there for that discussion then, that one.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Okay.
thought, yeah.
So what we are proposing is to change item 2 to agree to pursue option 3 of the report, replacing all 32 town council owned single dog unit dog waste bins with single units with officers to use appropriate bins in appropriate locations. Is that what you're happy with? It's to give officers a bit of jurisdiction and flexibility so that we can have the appropriate bins in the appropriate places, but not necessarily just a like for like. Is that? So can I have note taker? Have you got that? Are you happy with that? Okay. So I'd like to take the two together. So could I have a proposer to note the contents of the report and also note the amended item 2? Councillor Bristow, yes. And the seconder, please. Councillor Rutland, thank you. All in favour of the amendments? Okay, anyone abstaining? Anyone voting against?
Do we need to mention the budget implication? Because on the finance bit at the bottom, if we do go for more expensive bins, we haven't put that on the finance recommendation. So it could be an increase of up to £400 if it's, say, 10 bins. Do we need to just, at this point, agree that?
Are we happy to add that to the amendment with officers' flexibility and appropriate budgetary adjustment?
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yes?
Yeah.
Everybody happy with that? Can we just have another quick round, just show that we're in favour of that? Everybody in agreement with that amended section 4, section 2 rather. Okay, thank you very much. Right. Item 11, we're getting there. We're back to toilets again. We've come off human poo to dog poo and back to human poo. Yes, so Helen is not here.
No.
Who is talking to
That's
us?
me. Just to say, this is a really nice moment because this is the result of a run through of the community services papers where you made the decision to purchase compostable toilets for the Martello toilets while they were being built, on the basis we then own those assets and not rent them, and then we can move those assets to a new location when we no longer needed them there. So this paper is recommending that we move the 2 compostable toilet units that we own to the Crouch, one to the Crouch and one to South Hill Barn. The Crouch, the stakeholder meeting, the members asked 4 toilets, so we were able to, if you approve, actually give them a toilet option with disabled facilities, which is what the football club particularly wanted. So it's a lovely moment. And then for the up at Seaford Head, there's been requests from the Wildlife Trust, who manage the area for us, that actually they're finding it rather difficult when they go in the bushes, and could we possibly think about the toilet facilities, and that was agreed by the Seaford Head. What's the name of the committee? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and said yes, that would be appropriate, especially as they're compostable. And actually, they will replace 2 chemical toilets that are up there, or a chemical toilet that's up there. So that's another positive move away from chemicals.
So the new compostable toilets we've got are so much better than the temporary ones we had.
Yes.
Yes.
They are brilliant.
We didn't have a choice of the temporary one because we were so late in the season.
Yes. Well, big improvement. Well done.
Councillor Bristow.
Thank you. Thank you very much to officers and particularly to Helen for pulling this together. It is a nice moment, and as a councillor I'm involved obviously with the Crouches, it's my board, and with the Seaford Head local nature reserve stuff, and I know that they will be very welcome in both, particularly at the Crouches. The Seaford Community Garden have been relying on the Colin Club toilet, and due to that going for development, that arrangement going to cease. That's really important. So what I was going to say on a practical note is I am happy for officers to determine the footprint, but thinking about things at the Crouch, and they've actually got quite a large footprint, these accessible toilets, I do wonder where you might envisage it going, and my only concern would be that obviously with the gate, if it was going to go in the eastern field anywhere, with the gates locking at different times, we don't want to end up with a public facility that's behind locked gates, so we just need to take that into account. I felt I had to mention that in public so that that's kind of out there, but I'm sure that's something you take into account anyway. So thank you very much, and yeah, I'm sure it'll be welcomed.
Good job.
Okay. Councillor Mead.
Thank you. My computer went down, so I haven't got the agenda in front of me. It might explain in there, but I just wondered who is going to be cleaning these toilets? Are they part of the contract? So someone's got to go up to South Hill Barn, but not twice or 3 times a day, or are they going to be?
Yeah, they're going to be exactly the same.
Okay.
They will be hammered up at South Hill Barn.
Yeah. But this is why I'm thinking, this is another reason to think that may not be enough to support this service.
Fair point, yeah.
You know, because I think they're going to be running all over the place.
I think we met, if I may, Chair, we do mention that there might be some movement, but before this meeting took place, I couldn't really put anything in there to say there will definitely be, additions to the contract moving forward. But now I can.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any more comments, questions? Right, so we are asked to note the contents of the report and to agree to the compostable toilet blocks being relocated to South Hill Barn and the Crouch after the completion of the Martello toilets development, and with the exact footprint to be determined operationally by officers, as we've discussed. So can I have a proposer for both items 1 and 2? So Councillor Meek, second Councillor Taylor. Thank you. All of those in favour? Thank you. Anyone abstaining? Anyone dissenting? No, passed unanimously. Right, I think we're on the last one. Item 12. This, right, okay. Penultimate. So, this is about the Salt tennis court concession.
Yeah. the tennis courts were built. We went out for a coach when they were built. This was when they were first set up. There were no takers for the offer. And as a result, for the last 2 years, they've sort of sat there just on pay and play. The income is steadily declining, and if you look on the variation report, you can see that the tennis features quite heavily in the fact that we're not getting the income we thought we would. So what we've done is gone back to the Lawn Tennis Association and said, we can't have tennis courts sitting there not making any money when we're paying quite a significant loan. And we would like to either do something about getting coaching there or overmark so we can actually start leveraging income from other sources. The Lawn Tennis Association were absolutely against us overmarking, so we've come up with a 1-year contract where we've said to the Lawn Tennis Association, you pick what is reasonable for a coach to pay a contractor, but a concession based on the fact that we don't really know. You help us write something that will be attractive, and we'll do it for 1 year, and we'll use that as a test of the market, and then we can go back and rethink. So the Lawn Tennis Association have suggested the 5,500. That's 5,500, frankly, we don't have at the moment. So that would be lovely. And we've gone out with an attractive offer for 1 year with a potential to go out for a longer term after the first year, and we've understood what's working, what isn't working, whether it affected the membership and the pay and play, and also that means someone that is on the course looking after them, which at the moment we're also doing. So this is a try.
Sorry, what is overmarking?
So at the moment, overmarking is where you paint more courts. So at the moment they're marked for tennis. Mm-hmm. We know that if we mark them for football or netball, we would get significant income because people could then hire them on the basis of they're playing a different sport. The sort of stakeholders, the cricket and the rugby and the football all said we do not have a hard surface to do winter training on, and we can't play on the grass because it's too wet and then it's not fit for playing later. So we're also listening to that pressure and thinking how can we try and get them a hard surface when there's one sitting there that's not really being used. So this is...
That would make sense.
Yeah, so, but the Lawn Tennis Association have an absolute policy where they will not let you overmark. So the deal we've struck is we'll do it for a year. If we don't get any interest from a coach, then we're going to come back to you and say, sorry, we need to make this more appealable to the rest of our the residents.
I think it sort of fits into a wider use of the communal resources. And having a beautiful pitch there that's not widely used seems unfair to the residents of Seaford. But we also have to work with the Lawn Tennis Association because they helped it to be created in the first place. So I think it's about moving things forward and looking at different ways of using the space. Councillor Honeyman.
You were first, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I mean, just to say, I think it's a really good proposal, and I'm not surprised the Lawn Tennis Association won't agree to it. They've pumped a whole lot of money into this. Why would they say, oh yes, overmarket with whatever you want? No, it has to be for tennis because that's what they paid for. So I think it's a very sensible thing. I would completely support it. I think it's a really good idea. I think it's been well drafted. I think it's a well drafted idea.
I don't think they've given us the money. They've loaned us the money, haven't they? Yeah.
But it's at preferential rates and things.
But they're not.
Well, obviously, then, following on what Councillor Meek was saying in a way, then, so you'd really want to break the contract, what you agreed with the Lawn Tennis Association. That's one question, which is both essentially you are with that loan. Is that what you want to do? And the other question is, if you're using other sports on that surface, you might damage the surface if you've got different sports on it. And obviously, I know it's the wrong size for doing football anyway, but if you have different shoe wear and everything else that goes with doing like football, for example, it depends on what you want out of that ground, but it's essentially change of use. So they could be fairly controversial on one level. On one level, I can see why you're doing it, but on another level, trying to do it like a mugger, basically, which is what you're after, isn't it?
So
multi-user games
it's an all-weather
area. That's the mugger. Yeah.
surface. Yeah,
That's what you're trying to change it to that. 'Cause it's a different legal framework, isn't it, a mugger?
So on the loan,
Yeah.
there could be an option going forward to pay the loan early so that they have no influence on the court.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, we're actually just
Yeah.
trying to see if this works. Now, if it works and we've got a coach and we get more income and people are playing tennis, that's sort of the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
What I don't think is a good look for Seaford is having a lovely surface there with nobody using it, and that's what we've had, and it's commented on a lot. So the idea is to try and get the use for its purpose, and then have a back plan, which is, okay, so we've tried our very best, we've put out a really appealing, attractive tender. If no one comes forward, then actually we do need to look at how else we're going to use that space and leverage in the income.
But what about the surface? Going back to the surface is a...
So they're overmarked all the time.
Yeah.
So if you look at waves, it's overmarked. Waves down in just with Dean, that's overmarked. It's really
Right.
common. Where I play in Falmouth, that's overmarked. Tennis and netball, for example. So it's common, and that surface is also commonly overmarked.
So final question, like the surface at the Wave Leisure Centre now is pretty similar to what you've got at the tennis court anyway. So it's not it wouldn't upset anything by doing other sports in it.
So we do the research, but my experience is, and there are lots of courts that are overmarked, so we would double check that. But right now, the Lawn Tennis Association is absolutely no. So
Okay.
we're working with them to say, okay, we'll work with you. Here's a year. What does it do to our income? What does it do to people playing tennis and visually playing tennis? And then we can make a decision, which will come back here again.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Councillor Brister.
Two quick queries. Does the Lawn Tennis Association allow sort of related games like this paddle or paddle, if you pronounce it like that?
They won't allow
Okay.
any overmarking at all.
Right, okay, so not even the sort of getting into tennis
No.
type sports. And have we had any dialogue with the tennis club up at Blatchington at all? Are they sort of oversubscribed, undersubscribed, they don't have any interest?
They don't have any
No,
interest.
they're quite self-sufficient up there, aren't
Yeah.
they? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'd like
Councillor Taylor.
to support trying to understand why it's not being used, or why there isn't a draw, and perhaps it is because there isn't already a coach in place and someone who's going to do the work to bring people in. Because tennis, I mean, I've played tennis quite a bit, and I've also played on those courts before they were resurfaced. I'm not going to do it now, but I think I just can't imagine that there isn't a market out there for tennis, and I just wonder, you know, it's chicken and egg, isn't it? If the coach can be appointed who could go out and go to the schools, I mean that's the obvious thing to start with. Give it a go.
Okay, so we've got everything to play for, not just tennis for the next year to see what things happen, and then we'll reassess matters and get the very best that we can for our residents. Right, okay, so we're asked to note the contents of the report, to approve the amended approach for introducing a tennis concession being taken in partnership with the Lawn Tennis Association, and thirdly, to delegate power to the Head of Assets, Projects and Services in consultation with myself, the Chair of Community Services and the RFO, to negotiate and agree the first year's annual rent for the tennis concession. Can I have a proposal for all three sections, please? Councillor Walrover, thank you. And a second, Councillor Taylor. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Anyone abstaining? Anyone dissenting? No, thank you. Right, so this really is the last one. Yes. 13 that was hiding. And this is to seek approval for a tradesperson framework. So tell us more, Lynn.
So this is simply introducing a framework where we will invite local tradespeople to sign up with us, sharing all their details like insurance certificates and when they can work, when they can't work, if they will do out of hours work, so that we then can put out jobs into the framework and anybody can bid for it. So it's going for this transparency of we have lots and lots of maintenance work within Seaford. We spend a lot of time trying to find people who want to do it. So actually we're designing a framework where we've checked all their details, we have all their insurance and their licence to operate, their electricity, their electric and plumbing, whatever certificates they need. And then we would just put the job out, and then people can actually come forward and say, yeah, I can do that job within this time scale. So it's being more transparent. We're not as transparent as I'd like us to be at the moment. Where we have jobs over 2,000, our financial regs say we need 3 bids. That's also really time consuming for us finding those 3 bids. Again, the framework will be tiered and we can put the job out saying this is going to be a job that needs 3 bids. We're going to use WhatsApp because that's how traders work, but there will be a spreadsheet and documentation sitting behind it, and if they're interested, they can actually get all the files that they need. So this is, it's not an unusual approach, but it's one we haven't done in the Seaford Town Council, and I really like the framework approach because it means that we are compliant straight away financially on all our regs, and we'll have a bank of tradespeople. We can look at them to see the quality as well and remove people off whose work isn't as the quality we would like. But really importantly, it's back to that remit, our statement of supporting Seaford people to support Seaford, and I think that's what we need to do, and we can't necessarily demonstrate at the moment.
It's the kind of thing that's so obvious you can't believe it hasn't existed before, really. Councillor Britta.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and I can certainly see how it's going to help and support things. My query really is about having the framework kind of built and designed in-house versus putting it out and having a third party doing that, because there is in Seaford on the main road not far from me, there's kind of a sort of hub company, if you like, where traders sign up and then they get jobs and then they can go and do them. And I'm just wondering, have you explored, having essentially that managed by a third party, us saying, well, this is what we need in Seaford Town Council, these are our requirements, you go and do that end of it, or is it better to have it in-house, and have you thought of that?
Councillor Rutland.
I've done quite a lot of project management on their various things over the years. With what you're talking about with the hub, people pay a subscription to it or they get a commission off it, so there's an extra cost built in there, otherwise there's no point in them doing it. And what we always used to do is have a team of people that, when a project came up, right, well, we know we've got that guy for the sparks, that guy for the plumbing, and you have a team of people that you know are very good at that, and you just point that team at the next project and say, right, and then the next project comes up, and it's the team all know each other, and they all work very well. So it makes perfect bloody sense. Why haven't we done it before? It's a great idea. Get on with it. Well done.
If I may, Chair.
Yes, and then Councillor Meek.
I've seen this kind of framework working really well elsewhere, and at the moment, most of the authorities who are using something like this are using it for their elderly and disabled clients. So this is a really good step forward, I would say. The advantage of keeping it in-house, as it were, is, if I compare it to the Verges situation, if you can't deal directly with the person who's delivering, it can be really hard and time-consuming to try and get them to change what they're doing, or to do it slightly differently, or to not do it at all. Whereas if you've got that direct link with them, it does, in my view, save a lot of time.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's a brilliant idea, as everyone said, really good. I just don't know the technicalities of how you're going to advertise it. You see, you can advertise it on WhatsApp. You can understand how you could use WhatsApp to communicate it, but if you're going to advertise it, you've got to advertise it to the tradespeople somehow.
So what will happen is, in the framework, you'll have a list of people who are signed up to it, and what we're finding is that tradespeople do not sit behind their laptop. So we need to be able to reach them,
Yeah.
and they work on WhatsApp. So what we'll do is we will put the jobs out on WhatsApp with details, and we've got to finalise the framework, but I didn't want to go too far down it in case you decided you didn't want us to go ahead with this.
You
So-
will have everybody's number if you're on
I think
Yeah.
James is
WhatsApp.
asking.
So you
Yeah.
just look up all the local
First,
tradespeople and add their numbers and say,
Oh, sorry, yes, we'll be advertising the
you'll be
framework.
advertising
Yes,
the framework
yes.
so that people can then.
Yes, we'll be doing
They
press
can put something
releases.
forward.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you can put.
I'm sorry,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
no.
Okay, fine, sorry.
Stupid me.
No, I'm
Completely
stupid on tech stuff,
question.
but
Yeah.
well, I was being
Yeah, no,
stupid.
we'll have to go out and market it, but the framework
Yes,
will also
yeah.
sit permanently on our website,
Okay.
and anybody will be able to join the framework at any time
Yeah, yeah.
and leave it at any time.
Okay.
So we won't vet framework joining, they
Mm.
just need the right qualifications and insurance.
Sure. Yeah, great, fantastic.
Councillor Bristol.
Very quickly to flag, and I'm sure again you've probably already thought of this, but it hasn't come up yet, with WhatsApp and things and the sort of new GDPR having to take into account how that all works, because it's obviously slightly different to how other platforms work, so I'm sure
Yeah,
that's...
so we've got that
We've got that,
covered.
excellent.
And basically, we will be asking them for permission to keep their details past the year, or they can say, no, we don't want you to, and then each year we'll destroy, and it's a start again. So we will cover it with GDPR.
Councillor Honeyman.
Thank you, Chair. You expect me to say something, don't you, for most items? So, I'm okay for the lower level ones, up to about 2,000. I think it could get more complicated when you go for the higher level amount, so I'm not sure how you would choose then, and it get a bit more. This is really, you're really wanting this more for the lower level jobs, really, aren't you? The £300 ones, the quick sort of fix something, sort of.
Yeah.
That's
so
this is what it's really about. This one, isn't it?
it is, but we have jobs, for instance, with the View, where
Yeah.
they're coming in over 2,000. The financial regs between 2 and 25 require, there's a whole framework of what you
Yeah.
have to do. And what the framework allows us to do is we don't have to tender for between the 2 and 25, we
Right.
just have to get the quotes. So it allows us to put the jobs out, and what I'm hoping is as that framework develops, known, then we will be able to just put that out there, and the bigger boys, it will be tiered, will say, oh girls, we're really interested. Right now, if a job comes in, we are on the phone ringing round. And it's through the...
I mean, you've probably got an informal list anyway, haven't you? Let's face it.
We have,
But you're trying to firm it up a bit better. That's what you're trying to say.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy.
Okay, anyone else? Councillor Honeyman.
I was going to say, actually, I can say I experienced this personally when we had Armed Forces Day last year. Sharon's starting tomorrow. And the toilets was flooded. So luckily, Bob and Sharon were on duty, drastically phoning round trying to find a plumber who would actually come out for out of hours. So actually the listing would be very, very useful in that circumstances, because you were literally both of you trying to find someone who would come and sort the toilets out.
Toilets again.
Yes, toilets. I did actually say to someone the other day that actually, when we said about becoming councillors, well, you get to tell us that most of the time we're going to be talking about toilets and dog waste.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
I'm very good experts on this subject.
Right, okay, so, we're being asked to recommend that a tradesperson framework is established. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Honeyman and a seconder, Councillor Rockland. Thank you very much. All of those in favour? Wow, unanimity is wonderful. Any abstainers? Any dissenters? No, thank you very much. Right, that's it, isn't it? Okay.
Any other business? Who's coming down the pub?
Okay, it's 21:09.